So Google is launching some very cool features in their AI division, but understanding AI is a bit complicated. So we spoke to the people who are closely working with AI to find out what's new. Let's check it out. Google is stepping up its AI game in India, and its new Gemini features could give it the edge it needs. With India-first tools and a clear focus on regional users, the tech giant is doubling down on the market. So what's the strategy behind it all? I spoke to Google's top execs to find out. So we on Tech Today have this goal of breaking down the complexities of technology and AI being as complex as we know it. And it's always easier for us to help understand the subject when we have experts, people who work closely with the tech with us. And that's why I have two people from Google. It's Manish and Shekar. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. We'd first like to start off with what has Gemini announced today for India. If you could just compress the details of the event today for our audience.
Yeah, so thank you so much, first of all, for having us. The whole purpose, at Google is to put the user first, and we believe that we put the user first, everything else will follow. And therefore, we conducted a research, which was probably one of the most comprehensive Gen AI researchers in India, to really understand deeply, how AI is, entering people's lives. And coming out of that report is what we shared today, some really fascinating insights. A few of them which kind of stand out. First of all, that nearly 60% of people aren't quite familiar with AI. And the penetration or, people who have used it are in their early 30%. So there is a tremendous opportunity, therefore, of building, therefore, the penetration and awareness of AI. But equally, you find that people who are using Google Gemini are saying that there is a 90% or 92% boost in their confidence, and they feel a lot more productive, a lot more creative, a lot more confident in their communication, and therefore are really encouraging their others and their cohorts to adopt. So that's what we were announcing and sharing today. And then, of course, we've got our Google Gemini model and the 2.5 version, which Manish can speak more to, which is really setting the standard as far as AI and AI models is concerned.
Yeah, so Gemini 2.5 is viewed as this most powerful thinking model. And on these leaderboards like this chatbot arena, it has taken the leadership position by a fairly significant margin. Of course, my team continues to make it also the most efficient model out there, in particular Gemini Flash. When you look at kind of the amount of intelligence you pack, whether it be per token, per rupee, or per watt in terms of energy consumed, it is by far the leader.
Right.
Another aspect in which we are continuing to drive its capabilities are in languages, understanding many more languages. So Gemini Live formally supports 9 Indian languages.
Right.
And under the covers, we are making, again, these Gemini models understand over 100 Indian languages, hundreds of languages across the world, and also we have made these models in some of the benchmarks that we have released shared in external conferences.
Right.
And as we have done the benchmarking of various AI models on, let's say, a whole bunch of Indian languages, we find Gemini to be the best model out there, bar none.
Right, right. So you're speaking about languages. There is, as we heard, there is a bit of a disconnect when people are trying to use AI. Some of them don't understand the language. I mean, Hindi and English being the primary languages for us. India is a country of diverse languages. So I want to understand the challenges of training your models in these multi-languages. You said 9 languages Gemini Live now supports. But what about the next step in understanding the different other languages that we have in India?
No, absolutely. That's a great question. And there's such a rich diversity of languages. One of the issues that has held back, their due place has been the relatively low amount of digital presence of these languages. Even if you look at Hindi, for instance, it's spoken by roughly 10% of the world. And yet, if you look at the percentage of open web content which is available in Hindi, it's 0.1%. So factor of 1,000 difference. Then we have seen languages which are spoken by millions of people. How much digital content do you have on that language available on the public web? For many of these languages, 0.
Correct.
So, which is what inspired us to launch this Project Vani, together with Indian Institute of Science, like almost now 3 years ago, where we started recognizing that we need to start collecting the speech data from different parts of India.
Right.
Because in India we have this saying, right? Kos kos pe badle pani, char kos par vani. That the nature of language changes every 10 kilometers in India. So how do we capture that diversity? And already with the first phase of Project Vani, we've made data freely available, over 14,000 hours of speech data covering 59 Indian languages, of which 15 are what used to be zero corpus languages. This is the first known digital data for those languages, which is now available to the research community as well as the AI practitioners to utilize that data in building their models. So I think we continue to push the envelope in terms of making our models understand many, many more languages, many, many more dialects, so that eventually we all benefit.
Right. So in relative terms, I might not get an exact number, but how much time will it take to encompass all of the languages that are spoken in India? Because AI is learning at such a rapid rate. So is there sort of a tentative timeline that you can share with us?
It's hard, see, because I mean, in some sense, you could also always say that if you really, because our ultimate goal is to make even a language that is spoken by whatever, just a small community in some remote corner of India, I want the quality of our models to be as good on that language as English. So that will take a long, long time.
Okay.
But in terms of closing the gap when it comes to, okay, when we look at these benchmarks and we often establish these goals that, look, there's a certain gap and I want to cover 75% of the gap. Those kinds of goals we often take and we say, okay, we'll achieve that within a year.
Right, great. We've talked about breakthroughs like AlphaGo and AlphaFold and specifically DeepMind, but they come across as very academic. I mean, they might be applicable for industries or certain very high-level tasks. I wanted to understand breakthroughs like these. When do they and how do they trickle down into user case where average users, people like us, would be able to use something like this?
So maybe you can play a role. I would hate to think of these as, oh, those are for some researchers, academics. I would love to see more researchers in India make use of, recognize the potential for AI to accelerate scientific discovery. What AlphaFold showed is something very profound. It showed that this grand challenge of protein folding, which used to previously take about 5 years of PhD, an entire PhD, to uncover the structure of a single protein,
right,
that can now be done in a few seconds.
Correct.
So about a week ago, I saw an Indian startup which was into drug discovery. So we think of India as this we have such an amazing pharmaceutical industry, but a lot of it has been around generics, right? Where we let others discover new drugs and then we figure out a way to manufacture them inexpensively. Why shouldn't India be at the forefront of even discovering new drugs? And we have seen again some very, very inspiring examples of startups which are beginning to do that. So it's not just for, some researcher, some professor out there.
Right.
It's real world entrepreneurs,
right,
who are using these technologies to make a difference, right, to all of us, because when these drugs get developed, all of us will benefit.
Of course, great. I'll have a question for Shekar now. We understand that AI is accessible now to the general user, but in terms of development, there are still challenges. Now, Chinese models like DeepSeek have shown us you don't need the big $1 billion to develop and maintain and serve the user, the end user. I want to understand, is Gemini looking to democratize or make models more affordable that can also give us the pro experience, but we won't have to pay for it? So I wanted to understand that dynamic from you.
So I think one of the things that the report tells us is that, like I was mentioning, that there is a huge potential from an awareness and trial point of view, which obviously points to the job to be done that you need to build access.
Correct.
And the way we're looking at access is both multilingual, that Manish spoke of, We're talking about multimodality in which you can now engage with the model. So it's not just through text, but you can do it through Gemini Live, having a voice conversation. Now you can do a long press on your Android phone and you can switch on Gemini Live and take the option of video and actually point your camera towards items and talk about it. So it's now becoming video interface as well. Right. And then of course we've got under Gemini many other models. Indeed, we have Notebook LM, which allows you to convert a PDF document into a podcast and actually have a conversation in that podcast live. Yeah. Or indeed have VO2, which is our model, our latest model, which is really setting the standard from a text to a video point of view. So these are many, many multiple access points for users to satisfy their curiosity. One of the things that the report tells us is that the people who are using Google Gemini are using it for productivity, for creativity, for communication. There are some really wonderful examples of where a teacher is leveraging Google Gemini to make sure that she's able to translate the lessons into a very personalized way for each of the students. Right. Or there is a case of a retiree which is leveraging Google Gemini's screen share option to actually file income tax returns, right? Or you're finding that mother is converting homework into a fun activity. Right. So I think those are multitude of ways in which Google Gemini is now adding meaningful value to your daily activities, and therefore uplifting the curve, for that individual in terms of what they can achieve, as far as their, potential realization is concerned.
Sorry for interrupting, but I want to go back to the statement you made in your question, because I think there are some misconceptions right there. So if I were to ask you, what do you think, which model do you think is today the most cost-efficient model, right, in terms of this capability, intelligence per rupee? Which is the most efficient, which is the most cost-efficient model?
Yes,
it's not DeepSeek, it's Gemini Flash.
Right.
So, and what DeepSeek showed, is I think very impressive. It showed, yes, there is a company out of China which built this foundation model and kind of something in open source, but it was not a new paradigm in how to build these models more efficiently. I think there we have already shown the way with Gemini. And some of that numbers about that $6 million cost, while it is accurate, it is misleading because this is the cost of the final training run. And pretty much most of these other models have a very similar cost in terms of the training run.
Of course. So they're saying there's a certain cost that companies claim is not exactly the same as maintaining a model.
Or at least what people inferred. Some of the caricature that got created, some of the stories that got created, I think they went overboard. Yes, it was a very impressive capability, no doubt about that. But it is not a new paradigm in efficiency. We've already shown the way with how we built Gemini.
Great. Shekar, you were talking about VO2, a creative engine, a creativity engine. I want to talk about that. Recently, there has been an explosion of AI artwork landing up on social media, people creating AI artwork using different AI tools. And there always raises the question that a certain artist's creativity and their imagination is now being replicated by artificial intelligence. I want to understand with VO, yes, it's a video tool, but again, some users might want to get inspiration from a certain artist or certain director's style to be replicated by AI. Where does AI draw a fine line in terms of copying or taking inspiration from original creators, and what is Google doing to basically have that differentiation?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I'm very, again, proud to say Google has taken a very, very responsible approach to this. When we make use of, again, all of this like creative material and so on, we work a lot, with artists and kind of compensating the sources from which we draw upon. We have been at the forefront of, so my colleagues came out with this Synth ID technology, which is able to create those digital, bookmarks, watermarks, yes, to identify AI-generated content so that it can be very clearly distinguished, from human-generated content. And in fact, we have kind of made it freely available in open source. We have recently announced a partnership with NVIDIA that they will start using it. So we've been extremely kind of extremely responsible about how we do this. And there are also efforts which are where we are working with, for instance, music artists, and we are working on developing models in a manner that now you can attribute, you can fine tune that model in a manner that any kind of output that you generate out of that fine tuned version of the model will be attributable to this particular artist whose work has been used, so that the appropriate sharing can be done. So there has been a lot of initiatives that Google has been taking to do this, all of this pursuit in a very responsible manner.
Great. And just building off that, I think one of the interesting things that this report actually shows is that a significant percentage of individuals are saying that I want creativity in my daily life. It's not just the pursuit of the artist or of a startup, but people want creativity in everything that they're doing today, right? Whether it's, hey, how can I create a new recipe for my children that they love, right? Or, hey, how can I make homework, more fun for my children? And that's creativity. And what people are saying is that, with Google Gemini, earlier I was probably just struggling and, seeing a blank piece of paper, not knowing how to express it. But now with Google Gemini, through certain prompts, through VO2, I can bring that imagination to life. And you know what? Then I can start having many more richer stories with my children, with my students, with my teachers, and so on and so forth. So it is truly unlocking, creativity in everyday activities.
Gentlemen, we were talking about India wanting to be pioneers in artificial intelligence, wanting to really be up there when the entire world is talking about AI. We have started the process. We are acquiring GPUs. We are acquiring the talent. What is Google's role? Is there a role that Google is playing in accelerating or assisting that effort right now?
So yeah, we are very happy to see again the India AI mission, and in fact we have been partnering with the India AI mission in terms of both kind of sharing some of our own know-how, sharing kind of our views, right, of areas in which the investments need to be made.
Correct.
And then of course contributing to things like data sets. So there are, again, I mentioned Project Money, where we have been collecting all of this data in different languages, making that freely available. And in fact, we have seen, again, we have been in discussions with startups which are beginning to use these data sets to create these models. We've also been, again, making our open models. So you may know about the Gemma model. So Gemma 3, which was announced recently by Google, it's one of the most powerful, again, open models. Even when it comes to supporting Indian languages, if you look at the actual quality numbers, the benchmarking that has been shared on Gemma 3, it is absolutely kind of world class when it comes to open models. Okay. We have been offering these Gemma models as a starting point, right, to others in India who may want to build their own AI-based solutions on top of these open models as a starting point. So there are lots of different ways in which we are partnering with the government.
There was another statistic, we had made an announcement towards late last year that we will be doubling down on skilling Indians as far as AI is concerned. And we made a commitment of skilling 10 million Indians under the AI Skill House, mission that we've been on. And we've been doing that, ever since that announcement. So I think skilling, is really critical, something that we are really committed towards. And we are marching well, in terms of our goal of skilling 10 million Indians. So that program continues to kind of gain momentum.
Last couple of questions, gentlemen.
And finally, I'll add that we have been for many, many years supporting Indian academia. So there is a lot of research in AI that we have been supporting through funding. Like we provided $1 million grant to the Center for Responsible AI when it was set up at IIT Madras. Centers in AI at IIT Bombay, IIT Delhi, we have been funding them for a long time, providing support. We have been collaborating with many of these academic institutes.
Okay. So this question will have certain parts. Right now, the way artificial intelligence is accelerating, it's becoming a bit scary for a lot of people, and criticism is coming its way. Many people have called for regulation of AI tools. I want to understand, since you're working so closely with AI, does regulation stifle AI development in any way, or is it something that should be there?
Yeah, so my view is AI is such an important and such a profound technology which is impacting every industry, every aspect of how the world is run. It is absolutely important for AI to be regulated. But then it is so important, it is also absolutely essential for it to be regulated well, right? So not regulated in a manner that kind of comes in the way of recognizing this positive impact, right, that we are seeing of AI. So I find it again extremely gratifying to see the very pro-innovation stance that the Indian government has taken when it comes to regulation, that how do we regulate it in a manner that is not stifling innovation, but of course we have to protect the citizens and we have to kind of, so there is a lot of, again, very thoughtful approach being taken in creating those guardrails and kind of trying to measure and start to guard against these biases that these models could lead to while not stifling innovation, not like throwing the baby out of the bathwater.
Right. Final question. What's next from Gemini? What can we expect, and what can the user, the end user, look forward to?
Well, I think the model is, and Google Gemini is adding real impact in people's daily lives now, and you see that across the full suite of offerings that we have. I think the focus that we have now is to make sure that we are able to bring this into the hands of as many people as possible, for them to experience it, for them to enhance their own productivity, creativity, their own learning and growth and development and communication. So the focus now is that now that our model is setting the standard, we need to make sure that we cover that awareness and trial gap and make sure that people are experiencing our model. And the benefits out of this, which is all going to be about personal efficiency, they will now have a personal growth collaborator on a daily basis.
So the next model is coming soon?
Well, this is the model which we're now going to make sure that all of us have access to.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you for your time. It was an insightful session, and all the best for the future developments.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.